grand arc of the biblical story is toward peace and it's from peace.
Yeah.
That despite the middle, these middling stories, there is an ultimate movement toward peace that's embedded in the Old Testament itself. The prophets, when they cast a vision toward the future, are looking toward this covenant of peace that God would, and that as Christians we see enacted in the Prince of Peace, who speaks a gospel of peace.
Yeah.
So the framework of Scripture is decidedly shalom oriented, and in between, then we have these challenges of living with things not yet how they're supposed to be, and then for us as readers of Scripture, a God who is presented in ways that we find challenging.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of encouragement to us, like today in the church, thinking of the North American context where, as you mentioned before, it's declining, people's, numbers are down, churches and schools are in decline. I think we can take great comfort in the fact that the Old Testament itself is a product of a people whose glory days were long behind them. Most scholars think that the final form of Scripture, when it was kind of totally edited, came about in the exilic period and probably in the post-exilic, like just after coming back from exile, when the pews were no longer full, or if they're there at all, they had to sell the church property. And the place they were renting now as a church is, the landlord's wanting to repossess it to put in a, who knows, hair salon or something more lucrative. So everything, the glory days were in the past. But yet out of that context comes this rich resource of the Old Testament that's embedded in the struggle. That it's written by a people who were living among nations that were greater, more numerous, prosperous, and mightier than they. So the Old Testament is designed for people who are not in the dominant positions in culture. They lack the status, they lack the stature, all the good things of the past. And then in that sort of fragile environment comes this like incredible vision of hope and peace that the Bible commends to us to orient ourselves